Okay, here's a quick video to run through the steps for the DSO4111 midterm practical. So first of all, we're going to make sure we set the lucid device to 44.1 and just need to knock that down like so. Make sure you're on internal for the sync source and then none and off for the pull-up and video sync generator. Okay. Next step is to open up a new Pro Tools session. So, go. Just make sure you set it to the same 44.1 kilohertz sample rate. Okay, so just 44.1, create. And then you can make sure that you're actually locked by taking a look over here. If you're 44.1 and the externals are both solid yellow, you should be synchronized. Okay, next step is to check the Huey protocol. So that's under peripherals, and if you go to MIDI controls, they're right here. So I'm going to pick Huey for all three of them and then assign them to ports. So I need the same port to receive and send to on each group. So I'm going to use port 1 for the first, port 2 for the other, port 3 for the third. Okay, so that takes care of the Huey protocol. If you want to check if that's working, you want to just flip off of the analog controller, make sure you're looking at the digital controller, and then go ahead and just make a track in Pro Tools. If your Huey's working, you should get one of the faders to come up over there, like it just did on channel 1. Okay. Next, we're going to synchronize Pro Tools to the AWS console. So I'm going to do that again under Setup and Peripherals. I'm going to go to Synchronization. And on the MTC generator port, I'm going to pick IP MIDI port 7. Okay. And then finally, make sure that you actually engage the MTC button up here. If this isn't available in the toolbar, you can just right-click and pick Synchronization. It'll come up as an option. Okay, now to check that, you can basically hit SSL and then go to this automation button here. So you get this window to come up. Then push down the blue button on New Mix and hit Execute. And with that screen up, when you hit play, the numbers should be running if you're synchronized, just like this. You can see I've got the same time running on here as I do in Pro Tools. There you go. Okay, so now time to set up my monitoring. So just going to set up a pair of stereo outputs. Okay, and that's coming out of B7 and 8. So I'm now just going to patch B7 and 8 on over to external A and L and R. Okay, then over here on the console, I'm going to hit external A, make sure I have main selected, and then make that the monitor source. Okay, so the next bit is to get our instruments into the console. So we need 3 mono audio tracks for our guitar, keyboard, vocals, and a mono talkback aux track. So I'll connect those to the console first. We've got a condenser microphone in the live room there. It's connected to mic panel A1. And I'm going to need to send phantom power to it. So I'm going to connect mic panel A1 to preamp input 1. And then on that channel, we're going to flip it. Hit the flip button so it goes to mic level and then supply 48 volts. Okay, so then if you actually go back to the analog surface, you want to make sure the fader's up for that channel too to get to Pro Tools. Okay, next is the keyboard. The keyboard is plugged into balance line 2 here. So I'm going to connect TRS2 to SSL line input 2. Okay, and then I want to make sure that 2 is set to line level, so I don't flip it, I leave it green. The bass guitar is going to be plugged in to the unbalanced input. I guess we'll plug it into unbalanced in 3. And then we need to connect that to an onboard DI. So here's TS out 3. And here's me setting it to instrument input 17. Which I then make sure I flip to instrument level on the console. Okay, that means that my input should be ready to go in Pro Tools. So I create those inputs to be received. Since the patch bay is normaled, should be able to just make 4 mono inputs, because I'm also going to have to patch a talkback. So there's channels 1 and 2. I need 17 for the bass DI, that's the guitar. That's right there on B1 is 17. And then I'll make my talkback come in on 24, just so it's off to the side. There's 24. And here's the patch for the talkback. Gonna connect TB out to record input B8. All right. So the volume for the external talkback is right here. It's separate from the foldback volume. And the button is right here. So by patching it into Pro Tools, we're going to be able to route it to the stereo headphone mix and the sidecar mix later on. So I'm going to hit OK here. And I'm going to make my 3 mono audio tracks plus 1 mono aux. Okay, and that's going to receive all my tracks. So I've got the mic, keys, bass, and then the talkback. Okay, notice that the aux won't be auto-assigned, so you have to actually assign that to 24, and we also don't want it going to the mains because it's only going to be going to headphone mixes. So we'll handle it like that for now. Okay, next bit is to submix all 3 of the audio tracks into a stereo aux. So I'm just going to create a stereo aux channel. And then we want all these going to this aux. Let's just call it submix. You can use the shift option command if you'd like to, but my hands are a little tied with the phone right now. So I'm just going to assign them to the track. Each one of these goes to submix. Okay, so that takes care of the submix. Next step is to load 2 DSP EQs. 1 for the guitar and 1 for the keys. So here's the bass guitar. I'll load up a DSP EQ and the same for the keys. It's all we'll be checking for is to make sure they're DSPs. Okay, next we need some parallel effects. So we're going to make 2 stereo aux tracks. Make one of these delay. Make the other one verb. You know, whatever, just a couple of parallel effects. I'm going to load up, again, another DSP delay and a DSP reverb. And then I just have to make sure that I can send things to them properly. So the mic here is going to be sent over to the verb. We're going to leave that in post mode. You can use Option to click on that to get it to Unity if you'd like. And then we'll say maybe we'll put some delay on the keys. Not too picky about which instruments are getting there, just as long as one is going to the verb and the other one's going to delay. So there we go in DSP mode, all done. So next we need to include a click track and a master fader. Just like so. Usually move those to the bottom of the session. And then we're going to create a stereo hardware insert to submix, to insert on the submix here. We're going to create that hardware insert as a digital protocol insert, and we're going to connect the Eventide to it. So if we go to the insert list here, we make one new insert, a stereo insert, and we're going to call it the Eventide, which we are then going to move over to B9 and 10. That's because B9 through 16 is our digital outputs and inputs. So that'll keep it locked there. Now that I've actually got that created, I'm going to patch it before I load it up in Pro Tools. So here, to patch it, I know it said B9 and 10 in the I/O, but on the patch bay, it's AES 1 and 2 out. Not entirely sure why, but that's the case. Okay, then we're going to move that to Eventide AES in 1 and 2, and then the output of the Eventide AES 1 and 2 returns to the digital in. Okay, that's a stereo channel because it's AES. We don't need to worry about patching two of them. Next, over on the Eventide, we're going to want to hit setup until we get to the digital input, which we want to set up as an XLR because the AES will be flowing through there. And then we're going to pick our clock and we're going to change it to word clock so that it actually locks to the Lucid, which is 44.1, and you can see that that's just where it locked. So, if things have been done correctly, you should be able to load up that Eventide on the submix channel, and then try sending one of the channels through it to see if it passes through the Eventide unit. I'm just going to play the keyboard. So you can see it's coming through here in Pro Tools, a little quiet, but you can also see that it's coming up as a green light over on the Eventide meter. So I'm sure it's working. Okay, next I got to set up headphone mixes. So I'm going to set up my outputs for all my headphone mixes at once. I'm going to have one stereo output, plus I'm going to need 5 mono outputs. Well, sorry. I'm actually going to need 2 stereo outputs, one for the headphones and one for the sidecar effects, and then 3 mono outputs for the rest of the sidecar channels. So, I'm just going to set them up in that order. And name them accordingly. So here's going to be my headphones coming out of B5 and 6. Here's my first sidecar channel, my second sidecar channel, my third, and then this one we're going to put on 5 and 6 to keep it as a stereo group. Okay, now before I assign things to that in Pro Tools, I'm just going to go ahead and patch it on the patch bay. So, first one is A16. So here's A16 going to TRS panel A1, and so on and so forth. You guys get the idea. I'm just going to patch these over. Like so. And these guys we're actually going to move over to 5 and 6, like I label in the I/O, so that they can actually go as a stereo group. Let me show you why. If we go look at the mini mixer, you'll see that 1, 2, and 3 are coming into mono channels here, but there's a separate stereo channel coming in on line in 5 and 6 there as a stereo group. So that's why we've kept it over on 5 and 6 instead of 4. Okay, so that leaves just the stereo headphones that are going to go straight to the panel, no sidecar mix. So we'll use B5 and 6 here. And that's going to go to the headphone panel main LNR. That's going to be a stereo headphone mix that we set up ourselves. Okay. So now that I've got that all patched, in Pro Tools I can just assign what needs to go where. So for the headphones, I can just assign everything and use the Shift Option command to send them to the same SANSL at the same time. Let me just pause this for a second while I do that. Okay, so there's all the channels. Just highlighted them, and then I use Shift Option when I loaded up the headphone output on pre-mode. Okay, next bit is to make sure that we have a sidecar mix as well. So the sidecar 1 should be taking all the instruments. So I'm going to set up the keys on one and the bass on another. So there, they're both going to sidecar 1 there. Sidecar 2 is for the click, so I'm going to add the click here now. Three is for the talkback, so here's the talkback. I'm going to send it as its direct output because we're not sending it to the mains anywhere. And then 4 and 5 are for the effects. So I'm just going to open up sidecar, or sorry, 5 and 6, not 4 and 5, my bad guys. Here's sidecar 5 and 6, going to Unity at pre-mode. Okay, so on the Pro Tools side and the patching side, that's got everything we need for our headphones. So that just leaves a couple of hardware inserts with some compression. So I'm now going to make myself 2 more mono hardware inserts. And I'm just going to use a couple of channel strips on the SSL. I'll use 3 and 4 for this just because they're free. And since those are normal, we shouldn't have to patch anything to get the channel strip into the session anyways. So I'm going to load those up now. One's for the guitar, the other one's for the keys. So here's the bass guitar. I'm going to load up channel 4 on that guy, and here's the keys, channel 3. Okay, so I just want to make sure the channels 3 and 4 are set to line level over here, that their faders are up, and then we should be good to go. Last step is to connect the compressor to that guy and key it with the vocals. So here is the keyboard channel, and here is the guitar channel. So we put the first channel on the keys. I'm just going to engage the insert button on there, and then I'm going to patch it over. So SSL insert 3 is just going to go to an ACP88 channel, any one you want to use. I'm using 1 in this example, so I'm going to take 1 out and return it. So that's got the compressor on channel 3, and then I've got channel 3 loaded up in the session right there, so it's got compression. Last step is to key that compressor with the vocal channel. So I'm going to make 1 new Pro Tools output. I don't know, I'll use 15 just because it's over here and free. I'm going to call it my key. And I'm going to send a copy of the mic through that key, just like so. Okay, so now that that's actually coming out of the mic channel here, I'm going to patch it from Pro Tools Out 15. The compressor sidechain return on the same channel we patched to. So there we go. There's Pro Tools 15, running the sidechain return for the compressor 1. And that's it. That should be the whole practical. Good luck, guys.